Intersection Magazine Podcast.
Welcome to Intersection Magazine Podcast. This is the summary for the month of September 2024. The cover was taken from Unsplash. It's a great place where you can find images, some of them for free, others that you can subscribe to or buy. You can use these images for all your works or projects. Now, for September, I suppose I was interested in completing what I had started first last month on strategy with Rishad Tobaccowala. I was also interested in completing the artificial intelligence piece that was taken from writings by Claude.ai. So Claude.ai did a summary of some of the most important artificial intelligence tools that are on the market and what they do, what makes each of them different. And then we also differentiated between SSDs and HDs also, and what you can get from each of them. We also have a conversation with Moses Iteku of Shamos Tech Solutions, and then some brief perspectives on Tanzania and Zanzibar in terms of intellectual property. So this piece by on Tanzania and Zanzibar is a continuation of some thoughts that we've been having covering general intellectual property for Kenya, Uganda, South Africa, and some other countries in the region, and how they're tackling making effective use of intellectual property. So that's really the month of September. So we'll just go through a bit of in-depth of what we covered for the month of September. I hope that you guys enjoy it. Please don't forget to subscribe. You can subscribe to our magazine for just $24 for the month, for a year, gives you 12 issues. As well, of course, you can collaborate with us in the podcast for partnership opportunities and ads that you can host with us. Different ways of doing this. We can do a theme of 12 months, or rather of 3 months. That's 12 spots that you can appear in, where we cover general topics or thematic areas. And you can get your company at least a lot more reach if you collaborate with us. So anyhow, that's September 2024. So what I normally start with in my magazine is talk about our hosting services and design services, as well as my 2 to 3 week course that I provide for web design and web hosting. And it's really a deep dive into everything you'll need to know, whether that's starting off with basics. That's what we call what you see is what you get editors. Then we go a little bit deeper with content management systems. Those are tools like Joomla, Mambo is an older one, WordPress is a newer one, so we cover those as well. We also go into the 3 basic tools for web design, which is HTML, cascading style sheets, and JavaScript. That's a bit technical because it involves code. What I've done for that course is use material that I got from really deep training that I did online. And so we'll give you access to some of those notes, as well as the templates for you to play around with as you learn how to create better websites. Then, one of the most ignored parts of web design is, of course, the hosting. So we'll take you through what it means to establish yourself as a web host, whether you're going to do that on your own, and the tools that are available for you to do that, as well as if you're just going to become a reseller which is what I actually do. I'm a reseller. I get a package that says we want a certain amount from you, and so what I add on top of that is really up to me. Then they give you the infrastructure as well as the tools you need to do that. So we'll walk you through the whole process. But of course, we recommend that you bring your own laptop. So as I mentioned before, we talked about strategy, artificial intelligence, conversation with Moses Etekio of Shamos Tech Technologies, and then differentiated between solid state drives as well as hard disk drives. So that's pretty much covering this month of September. So of course the definitions, what solid state drives do, what are hard disk drives and what they do, the pros and cons of SSDs and HDDs, form factors, differences. One is faster, which one is faster, which one is more expensive, which one has mechanical parts, which one is more shock resistant. All those things are important. What possibilities exist, or what do you probably have in your device if you're using a laptop? Is it an SSD or is it an HDD? Those are all important because when it comes time for you to buy a laptop or a computer, you're going to have to make those choices. Then the second part I cover is usually a piece from Founders Freedom. Founders Freedom is in partnership with us for me to do some coverage of their services and to present articles on leadership, transition, management. These are their specialities. They're based in Kenya. They hold workshops and meetings, and they have packages that can help you get your governance right and create a board for your organization or for your business. So I recommend, of course, that you visit their LinkedIn site and communicate with them for more information. We also have two publications that we've put together, the Survival Kit for Effective Communication, as well as a glossary of acronyms and terms. Now, this is important because, for example, we differentiate between competitive advantage and comparative advantage. These were pieces put together by my late father as a consultant, a management consultant. And these are things that he came across that he felt were important for us to explore and further define. We also have placed a piece or a section, devoted a section to what it costs for you to subscribe online or for you to host space with us. The podcast costs are also given. A 15-second ad is $25. Sponsorship for a season of 12 is $300. And as I mentioned before at the start of this podcast, a season allows you to have a more focused group, whether you'll be talking about mental health, whether you'll be talking about hosting services, whether you'll be talking about innovation, whether you'll be talking about cryptocurrencies. If we do a theme, then your company gets to be identified with that particular theme for a period of 3 months, which is quite effective and in our view quite affordable. We also have the costs for space in the magazine, which are presented there, and then of course the option for those of you who want to learn chess. Chess is a strategy game that's almost as old as time itself. This will help you in your planning. It will help you in your when you're tackling tasks to think strategically, to think systematically. And also, of course, for those of you that are dealing with other businesses or other personalities in a competitive manner, it will help you plan better. We've also given you the costs for our web design and hosting services. We've differentiated between what we call basic sites and static sites, or basic static sites and more complex sites. But we also do sites that are used for electronic commerce. So if you want to set up a shop, we can help you do that. Now, in terms of strategy, We had mentioned this before in last month's coverage, but Mr. Tobaccowala has a few ideas that he gives about the scale of talent and ideas, for example. But we had mentioned some of the other major topics that fall under strategy. But he talks about how with social media, there have been dramatic changes to how products can be marketed and how products can be released. Then he also mentions some of the challenges we face with the scarcity of talent. Then he warns us about a few things that he's noted in the world. For example, how there's been an overinvestment in China, how some companies have built too many stores, and how there's a challenge in finding talent in leadership circles, and how that has caused a social contract to break. He also gives the example of a social media man who decided to set up a restaurant, a burger joint, and in just 10 minutes he had 10,000 people already in line ready to buy his burgers. But this guy moved from just having a social media site and a very popular YouTube site to launching a restaurant which was oversubscribed in just 10 minutes. So he talks, his comments are interesting in terms of what he suggests we should do when we're thinking about strategy. Now, for those of you who are into movies, I recommend that you look into some of the projects or the spin-offs that have been done with projects or works from George Lucas of Star Wars. So I gave a summary about Acolyte, one of the series that's a spin-off from the Star Wars series, which handles another part, another story, another personality. But I think if you're interested in franchising, if you're interested in business, if you're interested in segmentation, these are topics you can't avoid thinking about how to turn your product into, how to monetize your product, and how to turn one thing into something that can produce income 10 different ways. So if you look at a product like Star Wars that started off as a series, how they've gone on and created spin-offs that are all generating income for them. And of course giving opportunities for writers, for actors, for set designers, for stunt coordinators, for all sorts of people to engage and to make money. I also made a recommendation for sites for courses. This was after I engaged a couple of years ago with Zindi Africa. Zindi is mainly a data scientists site. They do training, but of course in this particular section I highlighted the coordination between Zindi and Microsoft. And so you might enjoy some of the courses they put together, and some of these courses are free. I also highlighted tools that I've made use of. I like to highlight the tools that I use, especially with my Fedora Linux installation. I run Fedora and Windows in a dual boot system, but because I know people are not too familiar with Fedora, I like to make the software that I use available for them to find out more about and to use. So mainly it was audio converters, and this is of course important, especially for those that are into podcasting, as well as PDF tools, file converters, and background image removers. As usual, we have our 4 months where we summarize what we've covered for those 4 months in the magazine. And this is useful for those of you who want to purchase issues that we've produced before. initially when I started the Intersection magazine, my plan was to have it exist as a textbook and as a magazine, so it's actually a hybrid. And I want my readers to be able to access the magazine and use it to learn or to connect to lessons that I may put online or other things that I may reference in the future. So we make available a section where we go back 4 months, where you can have a look at what we covered in those 4 months. Now, we also have a conversation with Moses Eteko with Shamos Tech. He has actually 2 projects that he runs concurrently. He has Farm Power as well as Counterbook. These are both amazing businesses that you can engage with online and, of course, read his story. What we're interested in when we interview CEOs or young developers is to inspire those of you who are starting off and show you the path that you can take as well to walk in the same shoes as some of these young people that are in business. Of course, skipping over the challenges that they faced and going beyond that. Now, in terms of a comparison for artificial intelligence tools, we had already started this last month, but this time we went into, talked about image generation. We compared DALL-E, Midjourney, and Stable Diffusion. So we were talking about use cases and applications, so creative industries, product design and prototyping, interior design and architecture, marketing and advertising. Incidentally, I used these tools. I used an artificial intelligence tool to come up with an icon for a WhatsApp group that I was working on. So these tools are available for use in such projects. Then we had text generation, that's ChatGPT 3 and 4, GitHub Copilot, and Jasper AI. For text generation, we're talking about content creation, whether that's blog posts, articles, social media content, product descriptions, scripts, videos, and podcasts. For software development, that's GitHub Copilot, assisting in code completion, explaining complex code snippets, and suggesting optimizations and best practices. Then in terms of text generation, is also the avenue that you can use if you're creating chatbots or virtual assistants or generating responses to frequently asked questions. That's for those of you who are into web design, creating personalized email templates. For those of you in education and research, you can use these tools, these text generation tools, to summarize complex topics, to generate practice questions, and then, of course, assist in literature review. The fourth one they mentioned is creative writing, for brainstorming ideas and character descriptions, generating dialogue, and then, of course, with poetry and songwriting. The final part that was covered is emerging and innovating, or rather innovative applications. Now, when talking about Tanzania and Zanzibar, I really was interested in giving my thoughts about some of the things that I saw when I was there. There are 2 different ways at which you can approach the subject, which was actually what I had gone to do there, was just to get some interviews with people in the tech and innovation ecosystem. But that aside, you're going to be bombarded with all sorts of information and all sorts of ideas, especially if you go into a country that's growing in areas that in the democratic process, but that has also been involved in a socialist system for such a long time. So those are just some thoughts that I put together that Some of you might appreciate, some of you might agree with, some of you might disagree with. And then, of course, I gave you some links to people that I thought would be useful for you to do business with. In a micropoem, I called it Hearts and Wounds. Some of you might appreciate that. Then, of course, in our Hope First Bakery section, we showed you, it's a show and tell. For those of you who are interested in our products, we'll make a catalog available for you to choose from. That's actually September for you. Once again, thank you so much for subscribing and listening. We hope we can continue to engage with you, and you continue to engage with us in the future. Thank you very much.
Intersection.
Intersection Magazine Podcast.